Imagine someone looking at you but not truly seeing you. They stand before you, yet their gaze passes through you as if you were transparent. There is no contempt, no anger, not even disappointment. There is something far worse, emptiness. And when a person stops seeing you as valuable, when your presence becomes irrelevant, it's because something fundamental has broken. It wasn't a specific mistake, nor a memorable argument. It was something subtler and far more devastating. You stopped being a man worthy of being taken seriously. Schopenhauer said, "The deepest pain is not born from hatred, but from insignificance, because when someone hates you, at least you exist in their world. But when you are insignificant, you simply do not matter." And that is the territory where many men find themselves without even understanding how they got there. Today, I'm not going to give you cheap motivational lines or superficial advice on how to win someone back. I'm going to show you the deeper architecture behind why some men are naturally respected, while others spend their entire lives begging for a fraction of that consideration. And I warn you now, what I'm about to reveal isn't comfortable, but it is true. There is a silent moment that defines everything. It's when she observes you facing something unexpected. It could be a trivial situation, an awkward comment, a cancelled plan, or a subtle provocation. In that instant, your reaction says more than 1,000 carefully chosen words, because what she seeks is not perfection, but something far rarer. She seeks inner stability. She looks for signs that you are someone who does not crumble when circumstances change. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, faced wars, betrayals, plagues, and the death of his own children. In the midst of that chaos, he wrote a line that has transcended centuries. "You cannot control what happens, but you can always control how you respond." That is the difference between the man who is respected and the one who is not. One lives at the mercy of circumstances, the other walks through them without losing his center. When a man reacts with desperation to a minor setback, when his voice cracks, when he looks for someone to blame or sinks into nervous excuses, he reveals something fundamental. He has no control over himself. And if he cannot govern himself in small situations, how could he possibly stay composed when life truly applies pressure? She notices this instantly. She doesn't need to think about it or analyze it. She feels it in her body. It's a primal signal that tells her this man is not a source of safety, but another burden to carry. Then there's another kind of man, the one who, when the storm arrives, simply breathes. He doesn't dramatize, he doesn't explode, he doesn't point fingers. He accepts the moment with an almost unsettling calm. And from that calm, he decides what to do next. That man isn't pretending to be strong. His strength is simply the result of years spent mastering himself. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who once advised emperors, spent years exiled on a barren island. He could have drowned in bitterness, but instead he wrote about serenity and acceptance. He discovered that real freedom isn't about controlling the world outside you, it's about becoming unbreakable within. When a man develops that quality, something shifts in how others see him. His presence gains weight. He doesn't need to raise his voice to be heard. He doesn't need dramatic gestures to be noticed. He carries a quiet solidity, something others can feel, even if they can't explain it. And that solidity is magnetic. Because in a world where most people collapse under the slightest pressure, someone who stays centered becomes a rare phenomenon. But here's where most men make a fatal mistake. They believe being stable means suppressing everything. They think they must turn into statues, emotionless, desireless, untouchable. But that isn't strength. That's fear, pretending to be control. True strength is not the absence of intense emotion. It's the ability to feel deeply without being consumed by what you feel. Jung spoke of the shadow, that dark part within us that holds everything we've rejected. Anger, jealousy, selfish desires, primitive impulses. Most men try to hide their shadow, pretending it doesn't exist, but the shadow always finds a way to escape through sudden outbursts, passive-aggressive remarks, or a quiet resentment that slowly poisons everything. The man who earns respect doesn't deny his shadow. He integrates it. He acknowledges his anger and channels it into discipline. He recognizes his jealousy and turns it into honest conversation. He sees his desire for control and uses it to build structure in his own life, not to dominate others. This process of integration is what Nietzsche called the transmutation of values. It isn't about destroying your instincts, it's about refining them. Because the same fire that can burn a house down can also forge steel. The difference lies in how you use it. Now, let me tell you something very few people understand. Respect can never be begged for. It must be inspired. And it can only be inspired by someone who has built something greater than the relationship itself. Imagine a man whose entire life revolves around a woman. Every decision he makes is to please her. Every free moment is spent with her. His mood depends entirely on how she treats him that day. What do you think she feels when she sees this? She doesn't feel loved. She feels suffocated. Because now she's not only responsible for her own life, but also for giving meaning to his. And that is an unbearable weight. Ortega y Gasset once said that man is himself and his circumstances. But some men reduce all their circumstances to a single person, and when that happens, they lose their substance. They become shadows, existing only in relation to someone else. The man who is respected lives a life that remains whole even without a relationship. He has a mission that gets him out of bed each morning. He has a craft through which he builds something that lasts. He has a body he maintains with discipline, a mind he feeds with study and reflection, and friendships with other men who challenge and support him. The relationship is not his life. It's just one meaningful part of a life that is already full. When a woman meets a man like that, something changes in the dynamic. She doesn't feel like she's filling a desperate void. She feels like she's being invited to join a journey that already has direction. And that is liberating because now she can choose to stay out of genuine desire, not emotional obligation. Spinoza said that true freedom is to act from your own nature, not from the needs imposed by another. When a man stops desperately needing someone, he paradoxically becomes more attractive, because now his presence is a choice, not an act of emotional survival, and only choices made in freedom create real respect. Now, there's something else you need to understand. Respect isn't built through grand heroic moments. It's built through small, quiet gestures that no one notices. It's in the training you do even when you're exhausted. It's in the promise you keep even when no one is watching. It's in the silence you hold when you could easily explode. It's in the boundary you maintain when giving in would be easier. Aristotle called this hexis, the habit that shapes character. We are not what we do occasionally. We are what we do consistently. And the woman observing you isn't judging your moments of glory. She's watching your ordinary moments. How do you act when no one is watching? Do you keep your discipline or do you fall apart? Do you honor your word or twist it to suit your comfort? Those are the questions that truly matter. Machiavelli wrote that men are ungrateful, fickle, deceitful, and dissimulating. But he also wrote that the man who builds his power on solid foundations can endure any storm. And those foundations are not wealth, not appearance, not charming words. Solid foundations are unbreakable habits. When you have sacred rituals in your life, things you do no matter how you feel, you're building an identity no one can take from you. That is the true source of respect, because it shows your existence doesn't depend on external approval, but on your own will. And will cultivated day after day becomes character, and character becomes destiny. But let me warn you about something. There are men who confuse firmness with rigidity. They believe that being inflexible in everything makes them respectable, when in truth it only makes them unbearable. Real firmness is selective. You know when to hold your boundary and when to adapt. You know when to speak and when silence says more. You know when to confront and when to let go. That kind of wisdom doesn't come from any manual. It comes from years of watching yourself, learning which battles are worth fighting and which are nothing more than noise. Heraclitus said, "No man ever steps into the same river twice, because everything flows, everything changes." The wise man doesn't cling to his positions out of pride. He holds to his principles while moving fluidly through changing circumstances. That conscious flexibility is a higher form of strength, because it takes far more courage to adapt with intelligence than to cling blindly to a single stance. And here we arrive at a truth that hurts. Sometimes respect is not lost because you did something wrong, but because you finally revealed who you truly are. For a while, you might have managed to hold the facade, but eventually the mask slipped, and what appeared was a man without a center, a man who only reacts, a man whose identity is nothing more than a reflection of others' expectations. Sartre spoke of bad faith, that state in which we live by lying about our own freedom. We pretend we have no choice, that circumstances force us to act a certain way. But the truth is, we are always choosing. We choose to yield or to stand firm. We choose to speak or to stay silent. We choose to build or to destroy. And every choice is a vote for the kind of man we are becoming. A woman can sense when you keep voting for the weaker version of yourself. And when she feels that, respect evaporates. There's something else you need to understand about the nature of respect. It's not a static feeling. It's a continuous evaluation. She doesn't respect you once and then forget about it. She's constantly assessing you through small, ordinary moments. Every time you make a decision, you're being measured. And the most fascinating part is that most of these measurements happen unconsciously. She's not sitting there thinking about whether she respects you or not. She simply feels it. That feeling is shaped by thousands of micro-signals you send without even realizing it. Your posture when you speak, the tone of your voice when you say no, the way you handle an awkward silence, how you react when she challenges you. All of that is processed in the deeper layers of her psyche, and the conclusion she reaches, whether positive or negative, feels like truth itself. That's why regaining respect once it's lost is so difficult, because it's not about convincing her mind. It's about transforming your being at an instinctive level. Nze wrote about the eternal return. The idea that if you had to live your life exactly the same way over and over for all eternity, could you accept it? Could you say yes to every moment exactly as it was? That is the ultimate test of whether you are living with integrity. If the life you're building is so solid that you could repeat it endlessly without regret, then you are on the right path. But if there are parts of yourself you keep hidden, if there are choices you make out of fear instead of conviction, if there are moments when you betray your own truth, then you are building on sand, and everyone feels it, especially those closest to you. Let me tell you something that will change your perspective. Respect is born from renunciation. It sounds contradictory, but it's profoundly true. Only when she feels that you could live without the relationship if necessary, can she truly respect you. If she senses that you're trapped, that you do anything not to lose her, that your world would collapse without her, then respect becomes impossible, because respect requires the perception of freedom, and freedom is only real when it includes the possibility of walking away. Kierkegaard spoke of the leap of faith. That moment when you risk everything for what you believe is true. In relationships, that leap is the courage to lose. Not because you want to lose, but because you value your integrity more than the comfort of staying in something that no longer honors you. And when a man develops that kind of courage, something remarkable happens. She feels it, and paradoxically, it increases her desire to stay, because now she's not with someone trapped. She's with someone who chooses freely to be there, and that free choice holds a power that no desperate pleading could ever match. And here lies the final secret that few men ever understand. Respect is not the goal. It's the side effect. If you chase it directly, if you try to manufacture it through tricks and strategies, you will fail, because respect can sense falseness from miles away. Respect is born only from radical authenticity, from living by your own principles even when no one is watching. From building your life as a work of art that reflects who you truly are. From integrating your shadows instead of hiding them. From standing firm on what matters and staying flexible on what doesn't. From cultivating a life so rich that no single person could ever fill all its spaces. When you build that, respect arrives on its own. Not because you demanded it, but because you've become the kind of man who cannot be ignored. The Stoics practiced an exercise called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It meant imagining everything that could go wrong. Not out of pessimism, but as preparation. When you've already faced the possibility of loss, when you've already accepted that everything can collapse, you stop living in fear. And without fear, you act from your true center. That is the state of the respected man. He is not free from problems, but he is free from the paralyzing fear of them. He has accepted that life is uncertain and has built his strength on the only thing he can truly control, his response to whatever comes. So, if you feel that you've lost someone's respect, if you sense that distant gaze that looks through you without truly seeing, ask yourself this. Have you been living as a man with his own center, or merely as a reflection of others' expectations? Have you built a life that holds value with or without that person? Have you integrated your shadows or only repressed them? Do you uphold your boundaries even when it's uncomfortable? Do you have the courage to lose so that you don't lose yourself? These questions are not easy, and honest answers will likely reveal that there is work to be done, but that is precisely the point. The respected man is not perfect. He is aware. He has not reached a final destination. He walks a path of constant construction, and that path walked with brutal honesty and silent discipline is what ultimately creates the kind of respect no plea could ever command. Voltaire once said that every man is guilty of all the good he did not do. If today you have the chance to become more solid, more whole, more conscious, and you choose not to, you are choosing mediocrity, and mediocrity never has been and never will be respected. So the final question is not how to make someone respect you. The question is whether you have the courage to build a life worthy of respect, even when no one is watching, because that is the only kind of foundation that endures when everything else falls apart.